What would you do if the very person who promised to keep your community safe was the one slowly, methodically, making your life a living hell? Asterisk. The first time Leo Cruz noticed the silence, he wrote it off as a fluke. A glitch in the matrix of his otherwise predictable life. It was the bird feeder, a simple, cedar box affair his daughter Sophia had painted sunflowers on. One morning, it was just gone. The shepherd's hook stood bare in the dewy grass, a lonely sentinel. Leo, a 38-year-old archival librarian, was a man who found comfort in details. His world was one of careful preservation and order. A missing feeder was an anomaly, a smudge on a clean page. He blamed raccoons, a strong wind, though the hook was unbent and the ground undisturbed. A week later, it was the hand-painted house numbers by his garage. Vanished. No chips of blue ceramic on the driveway, nothing. The third event was more sinister. He'd spent a weekend building a raised bed for tomatoes, right on the property line his survey confirmed was his. He came out on Monday to find every single seedling methodically pulled up and laid in a neat, withering row on the grass beside it. It wasn't vandalism. It was a message. Delicate, gloved hands had done this. That sinking feeling, the one that whispers this is targeted, took root in his gut. Leo started paying attention. He noticed the pristine white SUV that was always parked just so, giving its driver a perfect view of his yard. It belonged to Cassandra Vance, captain of the neighborhood watch. Everyone knew Cassandra. She was the one who organized the block parties, who disseminated the emergency contact lists, who walked the streets at dusk with a friendly wave that didn't quite reach her eyes. At 52, she carried herself with the effortless authority of someone who believed her version of the world was the only one that mattered. Leo wasn't a confrontational man. He preferred the quiet company of historical records to the messy drama of people. He tried to reason. He approached her one evening as she was checking her mail. "Cassandra, hi. You haven't, seen anyone messing with my yard lately, have you?" She turned, a practiced smile on her face. "Leo, oh, goodness. Nothing but those rowdy Johnson kids on their bikes, I'm afraid. This is why we all need to be vigilant. The watch is always looking for more eyes." Her tone was sweet, laced with concern, but her eyes were flat, assessing. He felt like a specimen. The next morning, he found an official-looking notice under his mat. It was from the Neighborhood Watch Committee, a body he'd thought was informal. It cited a complaint about unsecured yard waste, creating a habitat for vermin. It featured a photo of the pile of pulled-up tomato plants he had not yet cleaned up. The retaliation was swift, professional, and undeniable. Just like the thefts. That was the line. Leo's peaceful retreat, his sanctuary for Sophia, was under a silent siege. He bought a discreet, weatherproof camera, the kind used to document wildlife. He pointed it at his front yard. For 2 nights, nothing. On the third, just after 3 a.m., the motion sensor triggered. The footage was crystal clear under the infrared glow. Cassandra Vance, dressed in a black tracksuit as if for a covert operation, walked calmly into his frame. She didn't look around. She went straight to Sophia's tiny fairy garden, a collection of small painted mushrooms and a little mirror pond. With the precision of a surgeon, Cassandra plucked the largest, most glittery mushroom and pocketed it. She turned and gave a faint, almost imperceptible smile directly toward Leo's front window before walking away. Leo's blood went cold. It wasn't about the things. It was about the violation. The dominance. She was proving she could touch his world, his daughter's happiness, anytime she wanted. He didn't sleep. The next day, he printed the footage and went to her door. Her smile was brittle as she opened it. "Leo, to what do I owe the pleasure?" He handed her the photo without a word. She glanced at it, her expression not flickering for a single second. "Oh, that," she said, handing it back. "I was on my nightly rounds. That item was a serious reflective hazard. Could blind a driver. It's a community safety issue. You should be thanking me. You stole from my child, Leo said, his voice low and tight. "Careful, Leo," she murmured, her voice dropping all pretense of sweetness. "Accusations like that can make a person seem unstable. And an unstable home environment, well, that's something the neighborhood watch would have to note. For the safety of the child, of course." The threat hung in the air, ugly and absolute. She was no longer just threatening his peace, she was threatening his family. He walked away, shaking not with fear, but with a cold, clarifying fury. The reason had failed. Confrontation had backfired. The time for playing defense was over. Leo Cruz, the librarian, began to research. Not history, but his enemy. He discovered Cassandra's tactics were a pattern. The elderly Mrs. Gable had been shamed into taking down her wind chimes after a noise complaint campaign. The Singh family had been pressured to remove their Diwali decorations for being unapproved. Everyone had a story, told in hushed tones at the grocery store, always ending with, "But what can you do? She's the watch." Leo collected these stories. He quietly built an archive of injustice. He set up a second camera, this one focused on the street, and began logging the precise times of Cassandra's patrols. His breaking point came when he found Sophia in tears. Her beloved fairy door, mounted on the old oak tree, had been pried off and smashed. That night, Leo didn't set a trap. He laid a foundation. He created a private online group and invited every household on the street except Cassandra's. The subject line was, "Is our watch being watched?" He didn't lead with his own story. He started with Mrs. Gable's wind chimes. He posted the photo of the official notice he'd received. Then he asked a simple question, "Has anyone else gotten one of these?" The digital dam broke. Messages flooded in. The Singh's Diwali drama. A complaint about a basketball net. A fine for a garbage bin put out an hour too early. The shared resentment, pent up for years, found its voice. They compared notes. They realized the neighborhood watch committee was just Cassandra. The fines were unofficial. The authority was a fiction. Finally, Leo posted his evidence. The video of Cassandra stealing the fairy mushroom. The time-stamped logs of her trespassing. The clear, undeniable proof that the self-appointed guardian of their safety was their primary trespasser. The response was electric. The silent majority was silent no more. The next evening, as Cassandra began her patrol with her usual air of authority, she found her path blocked. It wasn't just Leo. It was Mr. Singh, Mrs. Gable, the Johnsons, and a dozen neighbors standing together in a quiet, unyielding line. Leo didn't shout. He simply held up his phone, playing the video for all to see. "Your patrol ends tonight, Cassandra." She sputtered, trying to summon her old threats, to talk about safety and property values. But the spell was broken. The people she had controlled for years were looking at her not with fear, but with cold disappointment. There was no dramatic arrest, no formal trial. But in the court of public opinion, Cassandra Vance was found guilty. She resigned from the watch that week. The white SUV was seen less and less. Leo Cruz never got back the sunflower bird feeder or the ceramic numbers. But he got something more valuable. He replanted the tomatoes with his daughter. They built a new, even more glittery fairy garden. And the lesson, etched into the quiet streets, was clear. Asterisk, the greatest threat to a neighborhood isn't the stranger lurking in the shadows. It's the tyrant smiling in the sunlight, who preys on silence. And the only way to defeat them is to find your voice, and to realize you are not alone. Asterisk.